Awesome. Well, welcome. Today I have a very special guest, Erin Lewis. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, you've been on before, but I wanted to have you back because you've written another book, actually two more books, I think, since the last one we talked about. So it's overdue. But I thought it'd be fun to start by, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, also about your books a little bit?
I am a mom to four daughters and a wife of almost 25 years. We just had our
Woohoo.
24th anniversary. Lifelong Catholic and have a degree in early childhood education. But after about 4 years of teaching, I had my first baby and have been homeschooling ever since. My oldest just got married and my youngest is 9. So I've got my foot in both worlds there with the young adults as well as the little kids still.
Oh, so fun. Awesome. Okay, and tell us about your book series and particularly the one that came out last year.
Well, I've written and published 3 books, and the third book completed my Chalice series. So I've got them right here. And this is the third one, which came out this year. And books 1 and 2 are Fire Tender. And then In Kindle and Me came out really 6 months after Fire Tender. And then earlier this year, the third book came out, which wraps up the series. And it's a vocation series. It follows like an unlikely protagonist through just finding out what his purpose is in life. And in the third book, he finally achieves that. So it's just a step-by-step journey for him through several years.
And he goes through the ringer. Like these books, I recommend them to people who want something, who are okay with something and want something that are it's pretty intense. Like I feel like his journey is kind of brutal. He's a really, like you said, an unlikely protagonist, but he's one of my favorites just because um he's a fascinating character of like he starts out quite a mess and he just like uh, as much as a mess, like I can be a mess, but reading, he's definitely he's really struggling, like especially in the first book. But um, yeah, the third book was really, really exciting. Um, it was really fun to finally see things kind of wrap up. Not that they're completely wrapped up, because I know that you're working on another one now.
Yeah, he kind of entered into a side series. I wanted to explore what happened to his mother. He found out some things and didn't fully resolve that within the series. And so I
Mm.
started writing another book, and it really became its own separate story with separate characters. So I think it's going to be in a separate series.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Any, yeah, those spin-offs are fun. Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna try a little context, I guess, for like the storyline. If people haven't read it, as a little teaser, it'd be maybe something like there's Dallas and Channing in the first book, and they're basically there's I don't want to give anything away, but there's like themes of like prison and the struggles with abuse and trying to find meaning. And so like there's a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff in that book. But then it's just really beautiful seeing how that path starts and then where it leads to and where people how people find healing and kind of how yeah, the journey of it. So I was really curious, where do you get inspiration for your stories?
Hmm. Well, I start with the characters. The characters just kind of come to me, and I figure out who those characters are. And then I really tend to write in more real life than any other genre. So while it's fictional, it's based on real human emotion, real locations, real time periods.
Mhm.
So the Chalice series starts in the late night is 1997 is the beginning of that book. And I grew up in that time period, so I draw on a lot of my own past experience for like setting details. Um, and the characters just kind of come to life to me. And so that's my main inspiration for them. And then as I write, it never fails where, there's little things other authors have dubbed them as God moments, were just
Mhm.
things that you read in, maybe you hear it at mass or you read it in, um, you're doing the divine office readings for the day or something, and or just a poem or something, and they all like have little ways of connecting to what you're writing about.
I love that.
So I'm always inspired by that. That's very motivating to me when that happens. And it also makes me see like everything in the world is just connected, you know,
Yeah.
it's just you know, God is in everything, even if you're writing about characters who have no idea who God is. So he's still there.
Mhm. That's beautiful. I love that. Do you, when you're writing characters, do you feel like they're based off of a person? Like, is there like, oh, this character got inspired by this, or do they kind of come like with their own identity packaged up, I guess, kind of at your doorstep?
Yeah, they don't really come based on any characters. They seem to be just totally just people I've never met before in real life, and that they're suddenly in my head. Or maybe gradually over time they build in my mind. There's
Yes.
definitely little things where I've had someone read. I started the Chalice series, which I didn't call it that at all, but I created those two characters, Dallas and Channing, when I was in high school, and I had a friend read this little snippet scene that I had written that does end up in the book. It's been very much, you know, revised by now, but it does end up in Fire Tender in the first book.
Oh.
And the friend was like, you're Channing. And I was like, really? So other people saw little details of similarities. You know, I think you put a little bit of yourself into your characters and just little bits of observations that you notice in other people sometimes, but not intentionally. So
Yes. And it's always that concept is always fascinating to me. Like if you wrote a character, they are a little piece of you. But then you can have characters that are wildly different. Like Channing and Dallas are very complementary characters. They're very different from each other. Um, and then that also scares me because we write really scary villains into our story. So like
yeah.
sometimes people are like, you always put a little bit of yourself in a character. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to work on myself. Hopefully this book is part of the process. Like, um, that's always like fascinating to me how characters can be so different, but they're all coming from your brain or how you're processing the world around you and stuff. So I don't know. That's kind of funny. I was gonna ask what your research process is like because you're so meticulously detailed. But yeah, I don't know if you have one or if you just pull from life more. But yeah, would you speak to that?
Well, I would say for the third book, which is in the Chalice series, The Fire of Your Love, it's I just call it the seminary story. So Dallas goes to the seminary, which is like an 8-year process. So
Mhm.
my research on that in part was drawn off, I have a younger brother. My very youngest brother is a priest. And so I watched some of him, what he went through with seminary, and I went to his ordination to the diaconate and then his ordination to the priesthood. So I pulled directly from some of those things. There's one line that I have a priest say in the homily that the priest said at my brother's first mass.
I
So,
love that.
and it was perfect because it was about fire, which is clearly my theme in the titles of these three books. So, and that was before I wrote them too. I mean, I had Dallas and Channing floating around in my head, but my brother was ordained 5 years before I actually sat down with those characters from high school that I were in my brain in high school and on paper from high school and translated it into an actual story where they actually did something beyond ending in misery because it was basically 40 pages and it was awful at the end. So I think my
God.
brother's ordination and his journey inspired me to make it into a vocation story. But then, yeah, I used that to research. And then because it's a slightly different time period, when Dallas went to the seminary, I'm not going to have it be exact. I didn't delve that deeply into like looking into what the seminaries were like at that exact time period, but I think it's close enough. So I went on websites of a couple seminaries. I looked at their class lists,
Oh, nice.
things like that. And then I based the seminary in that book on the seminary my brother went to, but I didn't want to name it because I wanted to make it a little bit different in places. That's where the fiction comes in, you know, I think.
Mhm.
And I also didn't want it to look like I was writing about that seminary either. And positive or a negative light at all. Because you have characters that make mistakes and stuff, and you don't want to portray a seminary as like they have students like this, or they all their students are perfect or whatever. So I never named it in the book, but I based it on it a lot. And I use Google Maps to do setting research. I go to a place on Google Maps, I look at the street view. I love the thing that you
Oh,
can go back in time. I think the earliest street view pictures on Google Maps are like 2007, which isn't quite early enough for me in a lot of my settings, but
wow.
it's closer than the picture that was taken last year by the Google truck that drove by. So I'll look at those kind of details too, to find out and to find out like what kind of restaurants, what kind of grocery stores are in an area. Because I almost put a restaurant into a setting where it would not have been. I almost put a Waffle House because I'm from Georgia and we created Waffle House. I almost put one out west somewhere in a state that doesn't have Waffle Houses, and I found it on just looking online and researching. I was like, oh, they don't have Waffle House. I better change that to so.
That's so funny. I don't know if we have Waffle House here in Minnesota either. I don't know.
It might have actually been in Minnesota because, part of Fire Tender takes place in Minnesota. I think
Yes.
when they're eating at the little diner
Uh,
at
oh.
night, that might have been when I had called it Waffle House.
Okay. Oh, I know. That's part of the fun of like road tripping when you're like, I get to have that restaurant that I never get to have. Like for me, it's In-N-Out Burger. Anytime we hit one of those, I'm like, we have to get it because if we as soon as we go too far east, they don't exist anymore. At least
Right.
they don't exist in Minnesota. But that's fun. Has your brother read the book?
No,
No, I want to hear his thoughts. Like,
I do too. He actually has a podcast that his parish set up, like his communications director does a podcast with him, which is so much fun. He's like, you can be a guest sometime on my podcast. I was like, oh yeah, I'd like to. And he's like, but do I have to read your books first? I was like, you don't have to, no. I mean,
like,
he's a pastor. He's very busy, I know, and
fair,
he was never like just a huge fiction reader just for fun. But
fair.
other priests have.
Oh,
Friends of
cool.
his, even other priests who are his friends. So.
Oh, what is their experience? I've been so curious what it's like being.
Oh, I don't ever get a chance to get that feedback. I have not. I had a seminarian be a beta reader for this third
Mhm.
book, so that was really helpful because I was like, I know you guys are all so busy, but I
Yes.
want to publish something that's not totally out there compared to what an experience could be like for people going through seminary as
Mhm.
Catholic young men. So
Mm.
that was helpful. But yeah, I have not really heard the feedback from priests who have bought or read the book. So I'd like to,
Mm.
but I know they're
Uh,
busy.
yeah, they've got some stuff to do. Um, it is, yeah, it's fun being from the girl's perspective of like, I went to Rome with a bunch of seminarians, so like, we're all in the same building, so like living with seminarians essentially. I was like, from what I had seen, I felt like you completely nailed all the interactions like so spot on. So I was like, I know, like a little bit of an outsider perspective into that, obviously, but it was yeah, a trip down memory lane for sure. Um,
That's good to hear.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I have three little brothers, so I think I based some of what I know about how guys act together sometimes on that. Because I only have daughters too, but I was around boys a
mm,
lot growing up. I babysat for tons of boys, and yeah, had the
yeah.
brothers. So
You get that? Because that's a question I get asked by my creative writing students sometimes is like, how do you write, from a guy's head or write guy interactions if you're a girl and you just don't get how they interact as much. And I think life experience is like the best way if you have friends and you talk to them and you hear their thought processes and you watch their interactions, I feel like that's going to make something authentic. Because just fabricating how you think they would act doesn't really work without some basis in reality. But yeah, you clearly had that. Um,
yeah, and getting male beta readers or male critique group
mm,
members to read. That's like one of my number one questions I have for guys in my critique group. Like, is this
mm,
character reading authentically as a male would speak or talk or
mm.
think?
Oh, I like that. That's solid. That's yeah, good advice there. Who is your ideal audience? Like, who are your books for?
Well, I'd say definitely for adults, age 18 and up, because like you said, there is some harder stuff going on in there, some grittier, darker
Mm-hmm.
topics. Anyone who likes a good redemption story and is 18 and older, it's not strictly anything I've written is not strictly geared toward a Catholic or a Christian audience, although I'd say the Chalice series is more strongly Catholic as compared to what I'm currently writing. But I'm always writing like through the lens of my own Christian Catholic worldview. So that comes through in a story, even if it's more subtle in some. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's kind of hard because I know when you just say your audience is Christian, a lot of the Christian fiction has kind of a label attached to it of it's clean fiction, which nobody can agree on a definition of what's clean. So if your
Mm-hmm.
character says the D word, then suddenly your book's not clean and it's not Christian. So I don't like to label it as Christian at this point
Mm-hmm.
because I know people have different views on what that means. So yeah, but yeah, any adult that likes a redemption story
Mm-hmm.
and isn't afraid of some darkness and some grit and some hard but real life situations would be my target
Mm-hmm.
audience.
I love that. That's solid. Yeah, it's they're intense, but it is beautiful. I like how you say anyone that wants redemption. They're a redemption story. So the previous guest I've had on, we talked a lot about wonder, and I wanted to dive a little into that in this one as well. How does writing expand your sense of wonder?
I'd say the most concrete way is that whenever I'm writing and I decide what setting the characters are in, I'm always curious about that setting. And then I want to go there and I want to just wonder about it, especially like the natural landscape of an area. Because the series
Mm.
I'm currently writing is set in Boise, Idaho, and I've never been there, but I've made use of Google Maps a lot, and I've looked around at the natural terrain in that area, and it's beautiful, and I want to go visit it. And then I've put characters going to Yellowstone National Park, and I have been there. But I mean, that's a place that's full of wonder. I think they actually used to call it Wonderland back in the
Oh.
20s and 30s when it was like a big new kind of thing for travelers to go see. So any of those natural settings always make me wonder for more. Because part
Mm.
of our homeschooling, we take the kids to something called forest school, and that's what they're encouraged to do is go out in nature and wonder and ask questions about things and find new things and learn to test their limits out in exploring nature. So that's a big part of it, I think, of the wonder.
I love that. It's that's fascinating to me coming from, you write realistic fiction or real settings. And um I'd read Tolkien's On Fairy Stories, and like he talks about how we like how he said it, I think was something along the lines of we write rivers of wine because we think about how amazing that would be to have a river of wine, because then for 1 second outside of that fictional world we realize just how crazy it is to have a river of water, and like how that helps us see the world in a new way. Like maybe we write about um just some like these crazy things in this fantasy world, just to step back and just realize how crazy our own world is. And it's kind of fun that as a writer working with real settings, you're still doing that, of being like, seeing the world from a new perspective through the eyes of your character. You're like, okay, Dallas is wherever, or these characters are wherever, and you get to see it kind of, you're almost like you're traveling through your research of for writing. Like I bet you would know some of the streets. Like if you ever went to Boise, Idaho, you'd be like, oh, I've seen this before. And you'd feel like you'd been there because you have been there, like through
Mhm.
the writing experience.
Yes, yes. And I have gone to some of my settings because for some reason my whenever I write a story, I always pick a setting I've never been to. Not always, but like it's usually in every book. at least half of it takes place somewhere I've never been. So
Nice.
I've made it a goal to go to some, and I have gone to some of these settings now. I've gone to Dallas's hometown. It's not exactly a destination, but we stopped there overnight as we were traveling back from a trip all the way out to the West Coast.
How do you pick? Like, because Dallas takes road trips. How do you, are you like, I want this, I'm curious about this location, so I want to research this, or are you just like, this makes sense for the story, or just like a name comes to your head and you're like, okay, we're gonna look in Nevada and just start searching there, you know?
Yeah, when I picked Nevada, I was 17 when I decided that they lived in Nevada, and we didn't have the internet. I mean, we kind of did. We had dial-up, but we didn't have maps on the internet.
The good
So,
days.
I had a road atlas. I still have it. I don't have it with me to show. I should have brought it upstairs, but it came like with the Reader's Digest magazine, and it was a little Rand McNally road atlas, and I opened it up and I was just looking at it and I was like, here's where they live. And now when I looked it up 5 years ago when I was actually writing the series, I found out it's an abandoned mining town and nobody lives there. So I
What?
had to change it. So I picked the biggest town in Nevada near this abandoned mining town. So it's Elko, which is in the north east corner of Nevada, right on the interstate there.
Whoa. Did you ever visit the mining town as well? I'm just curious.
No, it's a little far off the road, but I think it would be fun. There are some old, like abandoned, like kind of ghost towns up in that area, and that would just be really
Ooh.
cool. There's some interesting, foothill
Yes.
type areas. It's not mountainous. Nevada's like the least covered in trees of every state. I'm pretty sure it's like 95% sagebrush.
Whoa.
But it would be cool to go explore some of those foothills and those old ghost towns that are in that area. So maybe one day I will.
Ah, so cool. That's fun. It like sparks wonder in so many ways because you get to travel and
Exactly.
then there's more wonder because you're new places and then there's more questions and yeah, it's that's so cool. How do you keep inspiration coming? Because I feel like a lot of writers, we can hit writer's block, but you've got the third book, you're working on the fourth book, and it feels like there's a lot more books spinning off of this series. So yeah, how does that happen?
I think it's because I like to go really deep with the characters. I definitely am more character driven than plot driven. And so the more I get to know those characters, the more I can envision them in other plots. And then that's what's taken me so far because really I've got two series going and there's a little bit of a connection between some of the
Mm.
characters in both of them, but it's the characters who did that. It was them coming in, the new characters coming in on the scene and me being like, oh, I really can love someone as much as I love Dallas and don't tell
Wow.
Dallas, but I think I love this other character even more than Dallas, even though
What?
I've had him around in my brain since I was 17 and I'm 46 now. And I didn't think that could happen. So I
Hmm.
guess it's just like letting it happen, letting yourself
Hmm.
just go with the story. And if new characters come in, for me, it's the characters that really like capture my heart and capture my attention. Um,
Mhm.
and then I can find out what else, what makes them tick, what made them get to the place they are today, what's their future going to be like. And as long as I can end up with like a different plot line, a different character arc, then I can make that into multiple books. At least that's my goal. That's what I did with the Chalice series, is giving Dallas three like major challenges to finally get to solving his major dilemma was what do I do with my life and what is the
Mhm.
meaning of my life. But
Mhm.
each book he had to meet a smaller goal that led to that big one.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's so important. Um, One thing that'll kill creativity, I feel like right away, is asking what are other people going to want or what are they going to think of this book and trying to like make it something it's not, but just letting the characters run around and do their own thing. They'll do all kinds of things and you'll have all kinds of stories. Um, some people some people phrase it like, oh, I inflict pain on my characters. I always think of it like my characters make their own life decisions and I am merely the journalist. Like I am along for the ride. And if you just let them do their own thing without trying to put restraints or like, no, you shouldn't do that because that won't be audience approved as long as you just like let them do their own thing. they'll keep doing things for you to write about. And
Yeah.
I think it's more compelling, like the stories are more compelling. And I think I like the idea of like that can continue to bring inspiration then because the characters are going to continue doing things if they're not hampered. And it's like, it's almost in my head, it's like all honest storytelling, just like letting them do their thing. Um, and then, yeah, seeing what the consequences are. And then you have got a great story with all kinds of high stakes and things.
Yeah. And
Um,
you can always revise and take things out. So just keep writing it.
yes.
And, if it ends up not going anywhere and it's just silly, take it out. But I think
Yeah.
it always helps. Anything you write about your characters doing helps you learn more about them,
Yeah.
and who they.
Agreed. Agreed. I think that's really helpful and hopeful writing advice because there are times where you like, you write however many, I think didn't you had to edit a lot out of Fire Tender, right? And
I did, yes.
yeah, that's hard. So
Yeah.
this idea of like, I think as a writer, I get discouraged when it's like, oh, the all those chapters you wrote, actually the story itself doesn't need them. It can just be a little bit crushing, but people are, I think I forget who said it, but like there's no such thing as wasted writing. And it's like anything you write does deepen the characters and deepens your own journey as a writer. And it's so true. Nothing is ever wasted, but you know, those moments where you figure out you have to cut something, it's, it's still a little frustrating, but it's good not to be afraid of it, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
the Catholic Writers Guild online conference is going to have a panel about having to make major revisions to your book
ooh.
before publication. And I believe I'm one of the people on the panel. So that'll be an
Oh
interesting one.
my
Because, yeah, it is hard to
gosh,
make those.
fun.
Yeah, it's hard to make those cuts, but sometimes it's necessary and you see
Mm-hmm.
it improves the story. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Okay, that's a side tangent, but I'm very excited. So you're going to be at the Catholic Writers Conference online. That's
I
that's
believe so. I need to make sure I've got the details ironed out.
awesome. I'm very excited.
I'll
I've
be attending it too, so
yay.
I'll be there in some form or another.
Okay, everyone listening should go. It's going to be fun. Um, all right. More about books. Dallas has, I think he's really been helped slash pretty much saved by good books. And that is the books he's reading and kind of reading it with him as I'm going through the story is one of my favorite parts of just being like, I love that book too. That's like a mutual friend. Um, so yeah, I wanted to dive into kind of what why are good books important and like yeah, I guess why are they important? What impacts, how can they impact our lives? And maybe even what good books do you recommend? I don't know, that's a lot of questions to throw, but let's talk about good books.
Oh, yeah, I think a good book is going to they all have the same timeless truths told in
Mhm.
different ways. And by reading a good book, you can enter into another character's world and just step into their shoes for a while. But you don't have to actually go there.
Yes.
You can go inside a prison or, a place that you wouldn't willingly want to experience. Like you would not want to be incarcerated in a prison,
Mhm.
but you can through a book character. So
Mhm.
you can step into all these different situations, different countries, different time periods, all kinds of stuff where you can then learn from the character's experience. I read somewhere, I don't know how true it is, but if you read within a narrative story, it like accesses the same parts of your brain that would be activated as if you had experienced it yourself.
Mhm.
So it can give you a lot of, I think, empathy for what people are going through that you haven't gone through, and just give you a wider range of like experience to think about.
Mhm.
And makes you I think it's made me more compassionate to enter into other characters' stories.
Mhm.
Um, when you read about uh, different plights of different characters. So as far as good books that have inspired me or that with homeschooling, I've really gotten into more of those good books because they're just
Whoa.
lots of classics, lots of children's classics that we love, like we love the Little House series, the Anne of Green Gables, um, any of Rumer Godden's books, her children's books, or her adult books. They're all just really rich. And like the Divine Comedy, Dante's Divine Comedy, anything by Chesterton, all these things that even if I didn't read like a whole thing, like I did read the whole Divine Comedy with my oldest daughter, like while she was reading it in high school so that we could discuss it.
Mm.
But even when you just read short snippets or quotes of these some of these authors,
Mm.
they can be inspiring, I think. Um, and they can help us to just um, have a more well-rounded literary experience. But yeah, I just always was having a lot of fun as I was reading these with my kids and for so that I would know what they were reading, to
Mm.
pull in some references to those in especially in Fire Tender, because I made Channing be the character who just read everything he ever came across. Didn't even matter what the topic was, he would just read it and
Mm.
practically memorize it because that's just the way his brain worked. So it was fun to put in a lot of literary references. Homeschoolers love to find literary references in other novels. So we're always like, oh, I know that. Oh, they're talking about C.S. Lewis.
Yes. Oh, that's fun. It was fun. The way you wove it in too. Um, the way you wove it in where there's a character like Channing especially who just loves these things and he's so excited about it. It felt like I found a mutual friend of like, oh my gosh, we could geek out for hours about these stories. So yeah, it was fun capturing that in a novel. And it was really extra fun, like contrasting that because Dallas is like less of a reader. He's more of an active character. And it was really fun seeing him try to get through these things and have this different perspective on the books that I always appreciated because I was like, yeah, not everyone loves reading these stories right off the bat, but I felt like he did fall in love with them, but it wasn't from the exact same perspective as Channing. So that was fun. But what can readers look forward to next from you?
Well, I am working on the what I'm calling the series I'm working on now is Fallen Angel,
Mm.
and Dallas is a part of the first book. I'm right now, and it's the first book that I will publish chronologically. It's the second book in the series, but um, I know that's sometimes confusing, but I think that readers should read the one that comes second first. So I'm going to publish it first. That's my goal. Um, so I'm looking into right now whether I want to keep submitting it to agents and see what happens, or if I
Mm.
want to self-publish it because I've done a critique group and beta reads. So it's gone through lots of revisions already.
Mm.
And so I'm just finishing the second book of that series with
Mm.
my critique groups. It'll be ready for beta readers pretty soon. So it's a lot darker than the Chalice series. I know we already said the Chalice series hits some dark places, but it's darker. It's the main characters are a drug addict and a prostitute, and those are really difficult situations. So it's not going to be a rosy, happy series all the way through. But there is redemption.
Mm.
That's the whole point of the series. It's just very hard one, very long road for these characters. Um,
Goodness.
but if you like dark, gritty stories, but that are always influenced, always informed by a Christian worldview underlying everything, I will be looking for beta readers for this, the darkest of the series, of the
Oh
whole
my
series of.
gosh.
Um, I'll be looking for beta readers in the next, I don't know, 1 to 3 months on that one. But the feedback I've had so far is readers really love and connect with the main character. He's got a lot of supernatural um, gifts, just the ability to sense the supernatural around him, even though he doesn't know what it is. An innate respect for life, an innate respect for the dead, that just comes naturally to him. Themes of angels and a lot of spiritual, supernatural things that tie into the series. So
Wow.
Yeah, that's
That
it.
sounds so exciting. It'll be that sounds really, really exciting. I'm very, yeah, excited for it to come out soon.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to write. I really was surprised that those characters took over when I was trying to just Dallas just wanted to know what happened to his mother. And here are these other characters. I was like, what are you doing here? Who are you? And I was
And
like, oh
now,
wow,
and now
they've
he's the
been through a lot.
protagonist. Oh,
There's a whole story for
oh
these
my
people.
gosh. And then someone else took over the protagonist role, is that right? Like someone else is the main character, and Dallas kind of ended up
Yeah.
being a side character in the story.
Yeah, well, Dallas stays the protagonist of that book's called Up in Flames. Dallas does stay the protagonist, but he shares, it's the first book I've written from multiple points of view.
Oh,
He shares the view, the protagonist with Daniel from this book.
whoa.
Daniel, who's kind of a antagonist and kind of has his fall, and he doesn't really rise back up in this book. So I gave him another chance in Up in Flames, and he really rises to the occasion. He really learns how to put aside his holier than thou tendencies and his perfectionist tendencies when he meets people in these real world
Wow.
difficult situations that he has to minister to. So he's another point of view character. And then Teresa, who is the prostitute character, is the third point of view character. So they share kind of the role of the protagonist. All three of them really share that role
Wow.
in that book.
That's so cool. That's a very eclectic collection of voice characters, our
Yeah, yeah.
characters.
It sounds
Unusual.
like a bad joke.
Yeah.
Like a priest, a seminarian, and a prostitute walk into a bar.
Like
Like, wait, what?
yeah, but I think that's partly the books, at least I've read Fire Tender and like I read Fire of Your Love, and those I feel like part of what makes them so refreshing to read is because you are just going to be like whoever ends up in the story ends up in the story, and like yeah, you're not trying to have like, oh, like this isn't normally merged together. You're okay with just kind of going in and being like, yeah, we're going to talk about whatever Dallas decides to talk about that day, and he might talk, or just let him do what he's going to do, and it might not be the best life choice, but that's okay. So that's kind of
Yeah, yeah. And Eric's my favorite side character from this book.
nice.
And Eric makes an appearance
Oh,
in Up in
good.
Flames also. A brief one, but he's there. He steps in and helps out toward the end.
Yes. It's fun when you're writing and you can bring back old characters where you're like, oh, my friend is here again. Like, I don't know, it's really special. So, oh, so good. All right. What is one piece of advice that has helped you as a writer, that you think would be good to share as a writer or just creative in general, I guess?
I would say, I mean, I guess everybody hears this now, but I hadn't heard um, the show don't tell
Mhm.
advice, where you don't just narrate exactly what's going on, but try to show it more in depth. And just using really descriptive verbs and cutting out your adverbs. You don't have to say he ran quickly. You can find a better verb that shows
Mm.
quick running, and then it reads a lot cleaner. It's just tightens up your whole storyline when you make those active decisions about word choice.
Mm. I think that's one thing you helped me with on Sands of Nall when you did beta reading for it. You were kind of always encouraging me to tighten things or turn bits of description into like these action beats, which I've tried to pull into other stories as well, because it can make it really exciting. I think there was like one editor I was talking to who's like, okay, you like going a little over the top of the action here. And I was like, no, this is fun. I learned how to do this now. Like every dialogue tag is an action beat now. Not everyone, but like it can be easier to like taking something like you're saying, like taking the adverb out of something and turning it into an action step it's fun, and it keeps the plot moving forward because everyone's literally moving. So it's yeah, that's good.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
then
like to do that. Yeah, I like to take where they said something and just yes, turn it into an action.
yes.
I can see the progression too. If you look at Fire Tender, there's a lot of
Ah,
Ed Dallas, and there's hardly, yeah, there's much less of it in the last book.
ah, that's cool. That's cool. It's fun looking at your writing and being like seeing how it grows. I had
Uh-huh.
one author who was like the first book that came out versus the second book are so different. He almost wants to go back and he's like, maybe someday I'll like edit it to match. I was like, I don't know. I think that's part of the joy though, is like looking back and being like, I grew. Like you're saying, like, oh, look, I had more said in that first book. And that's part of the journey too, you know? Plus, I just think it'd be tedious to go back and try to edit a book that you've already published and be like, it was done, it was done. But I don't know. That's been one thing I've been thinking about, even as I'm like in the process of getting Heart out, being like, is it ever really done? Like, there's probably one word in there I could go back
No.
and fix. And then if I did that, there'd still be one word I could go back and fix. So it gets to the point where I'm like, all right, we're hitting send. Like it is now to the printers and we're waiting for it to come back. And at that point, it is what it is. And I don't know.
Yep.
Leaf by nickel, that whole
And you'll
situation.
read it in a year or two and you'll be like, oh, I could have done this better. I could have. That's what I'm like when I read Fire Tender. I'm like, oh, I could have done this better. There's so much italics because Dallas is thinking all the time. And I could have just made that tighter and just put it into the like actual just narrative in his voice. And so it does look
Mm.
different when you look at the third book versus the first, and you're like, okay, well, that's all right. That's okay.
I grew. That's a good
Um,
thing. Like,
and most readers don't look at it and say, "Oh, well, you used a lot of adverbs," and
true.
there's a lot of telling and not showing. Most because before I was writing, I'd never heard of any of that advice. So as a reader, I'm just like, "Give me a good story, okay?"
Yes, yes. Yeah, it is interesting how um writing can change your perspective, especially when reading your own stuff and you're um like I go through different phases too of like there are certain ways I was like comma use a little bit subjective and I was like changing things around a little bit and now when I read through certain old drafts I'm like why did I put the comma there and I was like I was going through a phase and I kept sticking a comma there and it just really bothers me right now so I tried to go through and fix all of that in Heart because I was like I'm sure there's still one in there that's like yeah the comma's technically like grammatically legal but it's like really annoying so I was like, I know I'm gonna find it. I know I'm gonna find at least one of those in there, but I tried to go through and find every single one because I was like, I don't want this right now. But our styles
Like the
change too.
Oxford comma or not. If you have the Oxford comma, you have to use it consistently, but you
Yes.
can't use it and not use it others. Yeah.
And
Well, I
that
tell my kids I couldn't spell the word restaurant correctly until I was, I think, 25 or maybe 28. I don't know. I just couldn't spell the word restaurant. I had it in my head wrong and it
oh
came out
no.
wrong every time. So
Ah,
I finally learned.
it's so funny. It's
And
funny.
casserole. I still mess up casserole when I write that word down, and my kids are like, Mom, you spelled and broccoli. Double the
Like,
wrong letter.
these are hard. Okay. These are
Whoops.
hard. And when you're writing fast, you just don't even care. Like it's like this just has to go down
Yeah.
the page. Because what
And
speaking of
muscle memory. Yeah.
yes, because speaking of Oxford commas, like as a high school student, like this was my very nerdy, rebellious self, but I was like, I did not like Oxford commas. Like it was just like the dumbest. Like, okay, for anyone listening who does not know what an Oxford comma is, it's the comma in a list right before the and. So if you're like, I like broccoli, carrots and corn, that before the and, should a comma go there has been like a series of debate for a really long time. I think at one point it got put in as like an official grammar rule, like you have to do it, otherwise you're grammatically incorrect. But I think when I was in high school, the book I was reading was like it's optional. So I was like, any comma that's an optional comma is one I don't want to put in. And my mom loved the Oxford comma, and so she's always like, you have to put it in. What are you doing? And I was like, I don't have to put it in legally. I'm okay. And then I saw an example of like a point where you needed clarity. I think the example was like the sentence I love my parents, comma JP2 and Mother Teresa. And they're like, if you need to put an Oxford comma in there, otherwise it'll really mess up that sentence. And I was like,
Right.
oh crap, you do. So after that,
Right.
I was fully converted after that. And I was like, okay, Oxford commas everywhere. Now I look for them. I get bothered if they're not there, but technically, yeah, it's just one of those things of clarity where, like, if you're talking about, sweet potatoes, corn, and carrots and whatever, and it's a list, it's not as bad. But there are times where, like, the clarity is needed. And so after that, I was like, dang it. All right. I think it was like post college that I finally got with the program, at least as far as Oxford commas. Yes. So I
And we
think,
don't want anyone thinking John Paul II and Mother Teresa are your
yeah,
parents. We don't want
exactly.
that.
Exactly. That's, yeah, very incorrect. And yeah, not right at all. So that changed my mind. Clarity is good, I guess. Yeah, put it into more commas. It's fine. I'm not as anti-comma as I used to be. I felt like they just cluttered, like, the aesthetically, I felt like they cluttered the page. Like they should just be prettier. And I was like, okay, now I'm okay with them now. We're getting there. Anyways, that was a really big tangent. Where can people find your books or follow you on socials? What's your handle? All that good stuff.
The whole Chalice series is available on Amazon. It's in paperback and Kindle formats. And you can find me on Instagram. I'm author Erin Lewis. And I also have a Substack. It's just Erin Lewis on Substack. And so I've got on my Instagram profile, I've got like a link tree that sends you to my website, sends you to my Substack, sends you to my much neglected Facebook page, since I can't figure out how to keep my personal separate from my author and like my author one lined up with my Instagram author one. So I don't really do much on Facebook, but you can still find me there and send me a message there. And yeah, the best place is Instagram or Substack.
Awesome. Well, Erin, thank you so much for joining me and talking books. It's always life-giving whenever we forget what were we doing last time. I forget when we're anyways, anytime we talk for whatever purpose, whether it's Pens and Roses, like our writer group or meeting at an online conference, it's always good. So thank you so much for coming on. Keep up the great work.
Thank you for having me.